In 1930, the Republican-controlled House of Representatives, in an effort to alleviate the effects of the, anyone? The Great Depression, passed the, anyone? A tariff bill, the Hawley-Smoot Tariff Act, which, anyone, raised or lowered? Raised tariffs in an effort to collect more revenue for the federal government. Did it work? Anyone? Anyone know the effects? It did not work, and the United States sank deeper into the Great Depression.
Remember that? That's from Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Turns out it's pretty accurate, too. Yes, that was true. That was tariffs back then, but there have been other tariffs as well that the U.S. tried to impose on Canada. I just thought that was kind of a fun way in. So let's get you caught up. Craig Baird is a freelance journalist and amateur historian. And he wrote about this when this whole tariff issue came up, providing some really great insight here, too, as to what has happened historically. So first of all, he is on the line. Craig, thanks so much for your time this afternoon.
Oh, thanks for having me.
I'm going to guess that scene out of Ferris Bueller's Day Off. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It would make you smile every time you hear it. So
absolutely.
Let's go back, because that talks about the Great Depression. So that's the 1920s into 1930s. But tariffs from the U.S. to Canada go back almost a century. So bring us up to date. When did this first start?
Yeah, so probably the most famous tariffs were in 1890 when the Tariff Act was passed. And that was passed by William McKinney, but it was during the time when he was a congressman, so about a decade before he actually became president. And those tariffs raised, tariffs on all incoming goods by about 38 to 50%. So it was a pretty substantial increase. And they did it because they wanted to increase the production within the United States, but there was also this ulterior motive of trying to force Canada to become more dependent on the United States, which would then cause annexation and Canada becoming the 45th state.
And how did that work out?
It completely backfired on the United States big time. Canada became more nationalistic. We started to shift our trade much more to Britain. So Britain and Canada's trade greatly increased over the course of the next few years. And in the United States, farmers suffered, the consumers there suffered, but also the Republican Party suffered immensely. In the 1892 elections, they lost the presidency, Congress, and the House, or the Senate. So it was disastrous for them in terms of putting these tariffs in.
So then we move forward to what we just played, this whole Smoot-Hawley tariff, Depression time. This was put forward by President Herbert Hoover at the time. So not as severe at 40 or 50%, but again, a failure?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. It definitely it raised the tariffs on about 20,000 imported goods, and it really hurt, our relationship between the United States and Canada, but also the United States and a bunch of other countries they raised the tariffs on, and really, led to the Great Depression and caused a whole bunch of headaches and problems for just a lot of regular people. They were the ones who suffered both in the 1890s and then with this in the 1930s.
And then, of course, we moved to the 1988 signing of the Free Trade Agreement, which I think everyone thought was a win for both sides. Well, that was then. This is now. Here we are again with this tariff issue, coming up. And I'm sure as a historian here, you look at this and you think, here we go again. This any different this time around than last time from what you can tell historically anyway?
Well, I think with the 1891, there's definitely a lot of similarities, especially with the annexation talk, the fact that Trump idolizes William McKinney, and he was the one who was really pushing forward the tariffs in the 1890s. And there is some major differences, though. Obviously, the trading network now is far more complex. We have a global trading network. Back in the 1890s, we were primarily trading with Britain, a few other places in the British Empire and the United States. So it was much different in terms of that. But also now we have many more trading partners that we can go to. But because of free trade over the past 30 years, our economies are very much intertwined. There's a lot more cross-border traffic. So there are some differences with what now versus the 1890. But in terms of why it's happening, there are a lot of similarities.
Yeah, and I guess I should point out, with respect to William McKinley, the president you first mentioned back in 1890, right, who first brought up this idea of tariffs, you mentioned Donald Trump's a fan. He wants to, of course, rename, I don't know if he's done it already or signed an executive order, to rename, that mountain in Alaska to Mount McKinley from, Mount Denali. So, yeah, someone must have said something about, hey, this great president back 100 years ago or whatever it was, tried to include tariffs. But the part about it destroying the economy never seems to come up.
No, it doesn't, and it seems to be a reoccurring factor when you increase the tariffs on imports coming in. And I mean, back then tariffs were part of essentially how a government would make revenue. This was well before income tax and a lot of other taxes, so it was par for the course to have tariffs. Canada had tariffs with our national policy to increase east-west trade versus north-south trade, not to the level of 50% by any means, but yeah, it definitely hurts the regular people. With 1890s, it hurt the farmers quite a bit because we started trading our agriculture, produce, and livestock with Britain and other parts of the British Empire, and we just completely bypassed the United States.
Yeah, which makes you kind of wonder how this thing plays out. We found out today, for people just tuning in now, that the tariffs remain in place. We thought there might be a change today. We were told to expect something. The only change is the auto sector, which got a 1-month reprieve today from the president. And again, I mentioned that's only for 1 month, but it's a significant sector here, of course, in the U.S. and in Canada. You look at this at all and think to yourself how it's going to play out, Craig?
Well, I imagine it's probably going to play out similar to how it played out in the 1890s. I think it's definitely going to hurt the Republicans in a few years with the midterms, and then especially with in 4 years with the presidential election. But I think it's also going to heavily hurt their economy because a lot of people seem to think that tariffs are something that other countries pay when, in fact, it's the consumers who are paying that in the country.
And we will leave it at that. I thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah, you bet.